Well, good morning, and welcome to the Chapel of Christ Triumphant. And also to all those out there in TV land that are watching via our live stream. This blended delivery allows for our community to both be here in person, but also be COVID safe, allowing many more to watch online. It also allows me to do something that I've always wanted to do. As a kid, I'd watch football games, and after a big interception or a touchdown, the excited player would come to the sidelines and the camera would view in on them and they would wave and they would say, "Hi, Mom." And so please let me. Hi, Mom. Hope you're watching. In our text today, the Apostle Paul outlines his own plight to encourage us along the same journey he is traveling. What I see is the highs and lows of following the goal of the prize of the upward call of God and the pursuit of this lifelong race towards the goal of heaven. Goals. What a powerful word. I think this is a terrifying question that can be asked of someone. What are your goals? A question a parent might have for their graduating high school student. What are your goals after high school? What are your plans? What are your plans? Is it a job? Vocational training? Is it college? What college are you going to go to? What is your major? What are you going to do for life? For some, this might seem daunting. You might feel overwhelmed. My 16-year-old son, when I ask him this question, I get that look a deer gives as the car's lights are in his eyes. Stares at that oncoming car. I ask my 12-year-old son, and he tells me his goal is something that extends no longer than a few hours and has to do with getting out of household chores. However, there are some of us who gravitate toward goals. I ask my 14-year-old daughter, and she tells me her goals are to take the right classes in high school that will let her into a top-notch college that will prepare her to get into veterinary school so then she can become a vet. She will then, of course, own her own practice that will focus on small animals, but also allow large animals. The practice will also have an extensive dog training school where she will become a master dog trainer. She will live on a farm. She will drive a Ford F-450 and own a Ninja motorcycle. I have zero doubts that she will accomplish this. Now imagine living at my home with this diversity of goals, and imagine the conversations we have around our dinner table. Over the years, like many of you, I've been through countless trainings on setting goals, how to write them, evaluate them, stay accountable to them. Sometime in the midst of this training, you might feel that you are creating goals just to create goals. In one training, when I was an undergrad, we had to, as part of the training, create a goal that we would use this method in terms of writing and following. The hardest part of that entire training was coming up with a goal. I think sometimes, at least for me, I overlook the most important goal that is right in front of me. And in this case, Paul points out the most important goal we should have, and that's to follow our Christ. Many relate to what Paul describes as pressing on to a foot race. But that kind of made me wonder as I was preparing for this message. In the time that Paul was alive, and let's just, for argument's sake, it was somewhere between 5 AD and 64 to 67 AD, were there even races? Was this even a thing? Well, it was. Paul may have been referencing the Greek games. Although there was no ESPN or Sports Center, it appears these ideas of sports were used as analogies in the New Testament. Paul also lived for 18 months in Corinth, where the Isthmus Games were held every 2 years. Both Greek and Roman games appear to be very well known throughout the region. The Colosseum was built shortly after Paul's death in 70 AD, an amazing sports venue, even though we do not think it had a jumbotron. These first Greek games were also pagan festivals, which seems strange to use this as an example, But I would guess with such widespread knowledge and interest in athletics, just like today, it was a common way to explain a topic. Paul's message in this pursuit of the goal of the upward call very much might be like a foot race. That same 14-year-old daughter of mine, who has her entire life mapped out, including her vocation in transportation, is a runner. She is a freshman on her high school JV cross-country team. As she runs her race, she travels a long distance. The goal of the race is to finish, and as she runs, she works to that goal. There's times that she might stumble, she might need to walk a little bit, even get sick, but needs to continue on the path of the goal of that race. And also, just because she did great in the beginning of the race, or in the second mile, or even had to walk a while, she continues to the end to accomplish this greater goal. The previous race is over when she starts the new one. And whatever she did in that previous race doesn't matter. What's important is the race before her and what she still has to do, the completion of that goal. One of my quirks, which I have many, is that I tend not to like British movies. What I mean about that is a U.S. movie set in England. An example is that movie Notting Hill. Anyone heard of Notting Hill? It's an oldie. Okay, none of you. All right. In this 1999 movie set in the Notting Hill district of West London, England, an American actress, Anne Scott, played by Julia Roberts, meets and forms a relationship with a normal British guy, small bookstore owner William Thacker, played by arguably my least favorite actor of all time, Hugh Grant. It was and still a torture to watch. However, it is one of my wife's favorite movies. I'm sure many of you as well. A second British film I watched that I actually found interesting is the 1998 movie entitled Sliding Doors. This is also set in London. In this drama, we follow the life of Helen, played by Gwyneth Paltrow, in two parallel tracks, where the difference starts by either making or missing a subway and having to wait for the next subway train. I think this movie is saying that how one action changes your total outcome of life, never being able to change it. I don't think Paul's saying this here, that a failed action means that you cannot ever reach that ultimate goal, that your race is over and you cannot restart or keep going. Paul was not always the apostle serving Christ. He underwent a conversion to Christ on the road to Damascus, where prior he persecuted beyond measure the church of God. He was not a good Christian guy at all. He would become a missionary who embarked on several major trips to spread the gospel. He would even spend 2 years in prison for doing the Lord's work. In Paul's race, there was a lot of walking, standing, sitting, walking backwards in his early days. How many of us struggle and think that there's no way we can even start this race? How many of us feel that we aren't even close to being on track of meeting this goal that Paul outlines? Paul is sharing this not to brag about what he's done or how holy he is, or what we might say at my house, look at me, how cool I am, but rather just the opposite. He has not achieved this goal. He's not perfect. He has a long ways to go. Just because he was a missionary, just because he wrote many books and letters, it is not about what he's done, but yet he focuses on his future actions, on the race ahead. All of us have a long ways to go. Me, you, our most respected faith leaders like our pastors, and even Paul. When my daughter runs her races, we like to encourage her by cheering her with supportive words. You can do it. You're looking great. You're doing awesome, Hannah. We wear buttons and team color with her on it, buttons with her on it. We wear clothing with the school colors and logos. By the way, I asked her the other day, do you like when we cheer? And she remained silent like a teenager, not wanting to acknowledge that she does like it, which I think she does. Unlike the goal-setting seminary where we had to try to make up some goal, our goal laid out by Paul is pretty clear, as is the path to achieve it. However, it is not easy, and it is endless in this life. I think Paul's message is more of this. The race to our ultimate goal is not easy. What you did yesterday does not matter. Focus on today. Paul's not saying, look at me, but rather what he's saying to us is, you can do it. You're looking great. You're doing awesome. And this race, more so than any Greek, Roman, or high school cross-country meet, is so worth it. And the prize is so much more than a trophy or a medal. Amen.